Roger Federer, the 8-time Wimbledon champion, walked into the royal box on a Monday night in July, and within seconds, every camera in the building turned away from the court and pointed straight at him. Nobody expected this. Nobody predicted that on the 18th anniversary of his own greatest battle on that exact same grass, Federer would be sitting there again, not to relive his past, but to witness someone else's future. And the player he came to watch wasn't a seeded superstar. She was a 21-year-old from the Philippines named Eala, about to play the biggest match of her life. By the end of this video, you'll understand exactly why Federer chose that night, that match, and that seat. And what happened next left the entire stadium on its feet. Let's rewind 2 days. Eala walked onto center court to face defending Wimbledon champion Iga Swiatek, a 6-time Grand Slam winner and one of the most dominant players of her generation. Nobody gave Eala a real shot. This was supposed to be a coronation for Swiatek, not an upset in the making. But Eala didn't just compete. She came from behind to defeat Swiatek 7-6, 6-2, and in doing so, made history. She became the first player from the Philippines to reach that stage of a Grand Slam tournament in the tournament's history. Speaking afterward, an emotional Eala said something that captured just how enormous this moment was for her and her country, that a win which might look small next to Swiatek's trophy case felt like everything to someone who grew up in the Philippines. That win alone would have been the story of the tournament, but it wasn't a fluke, and it wasn't the first time Eala had been building towards this. Just weeks before Wimbledon, on the exact same grass surface, Eala won the Birmingham Open, her second WTA title after winning in Guadalajara the previous September. She didn't arrive at Wimbledon hoping the grass would suit her. She arrived having already proven she could win on it. Then, in the third round, she fought back from a set down to beat Australia's Maya Joint, becoming the first Filipino ever to reach that round of a Grand Slam. And then came Swiatek. 2 milestones back-to-back on the same court in the same week. So, when word got out that Roger Federer was coming to Wimbledon, specifically to sit in the royal box, tennis insiders knew exactly what that meant. Federer doesn't show up for just any match anymore. He's earned the right to be selective, and when he chooses to be there, it's because something caught his attention. Federer arrived at Wimbledon on the 18th anniversary of his epic 5-set final against Rafael Nadal in 2008, arguably the greatest match in the sport's history, played on that very court. He wasn't there to reminisce. He was there to watch Eala take on her toughest test yet, Jasmine Paolini, a former world number 4 and Wimbledon finalist in the round of 16. This is where the story gets intense. Paolini wasn't just another name on the draw sheet. She'd been to a Grand Slam final before. She knew what it took to grind through pressure, adjust mid-match, and close out big moments on the biggest stages. And there was history between these two. Paolini had actually lost to Eala earlier in the year at the Dubai Championships, so this was also personal, a chance for the veteran to even the score against the rising star who'd already beaten her once. The match started, and center court was packed. Billie Jean King was there, Roger Federer was there, and the temperature on court that day was brutal. It was described as a baking hot afternoon on center court as the two players traded blows in what would become a true battle. Paolini took the first set 6-4. For a lot of 21-year-olds, that's the moment where things start to unravel, where the nerves creep in, where the occasion becomes too big. Instead, Eala adjusted. She came back and won the second set 6-4, leveling the match and sending the crowd into a frenzy. This was no longer a formality for the more experienced player. This was a genuine fight, point for point, game for game, with Federer watching every single one of them from the royal box. The third set is where everything came down to the wire. With the match on a knife's edge heading into the decider, Paolini earned the crucial break of serve to go up 5-3, and then closed out the match in the very next game as Eala's return sailed wide. The final score, 4-6, 6-4, 3-6. Paolini had won. Eala's historic Wimbledon run was over. But here's the part that actually matters, the part that explains why this video exists at all. When Eala turned to leave that court after losing, something happened that had nothing to do with the scoreboard. The crowd rose to its feet, an appreciative ovation from an audience that included Billie Jean King and Roger Federer, both watching from the royal box as this 21-year-old walked off in defeat to a standing ovation. In tennis, that doesn't happen for just anyone. Crowds don't stand for players who got outclassed. They stand for players who made them believe they were watching something bigger than a single match. Eala didn't win that day, but she made an entire stadium, including one of the greatest players who ever lived, stand up and acknowledge what she'd just done. Paolini herself credited her win to more than just tennis. Speaking afterward, she reflected that staying positive and enjoying her tennis is what she calls her superpower, a mindset that carried her through a season where she dropped outside the world's top 10 before this tournament. For Paolini, this win pushes her into the quarterfinals for the third consecutive Grand Slam appearance, a remarkable run of consistency at the highest level of the sport. She'll next face Ukraine's Marta Kostyuk, with a place in the semifinals on the line. For Eala, the numbers alone tell a story most players spend entire careers chasing. This tournament pushed her to a new career high ranking of world number 28. She became the first Filipino player in history to reach the fourth round of a Grand Slam singles tournament. She beat a six-time major champion on the sport's most famous court. She won a WTA title on grass just weeks before arriving in London. And she made Roger Federer choose to be in the building on a day that already meant something deeply personal to him.
What makes this run so remarkable isn't just the results, it's how she got there. Against Swiatek, she came back from adversity to close out the match decisively. Against Paolini, down a set, facing a player with far more Grand Slam experience, she didn't fold. She responded. She forced the match into a third set. She made a former finalist fight for every single point on a sweltering center court afternoon. That's not the profile of a player who got lucky. That's the profile of a player who belongs. This is why Federer's presence in that royal box matters so much. He didn't need to be there. He wasn't required to show up. And he certainly didn't need to sit through a fourth-round women's match on an anniversary that could have easily just been spent privately. But he came. And by staying to watch Eala's fight to the very end, he put his attention behind a player the entire tennis world is now starting to take seriously. When someone with 8 Wimbledon titles and over 200 Grand Slam matches under his belt chooses to watch you specifically, that's not a coincidence, that's a signal. So where does Eala go from here? She's proven she can beat the best players in the world on the biggest stages. She's proven she can win titles on grass. She's proven that when the pressure is at its highest, she doesn't shrink. She competes harder. The question now isn't whether she has what it takes. The question is whether this Wimbledon run becomes the foundation for a career at the very top of women's tennis, or whether it stays a single, unforgettable moment in an otherwise ordinary season. Based on everything we just watched unfold on that center court grass, in front of Roger Federer, Billie Jean King, and a stadium that stood for her in defeat, it's hard to bet against her doing something even bigger next. If you want to follow what happens next in Eala's career, make sure you're subscribed, because this story is far from over.